I just quit my job and bought a $900 scope. Is that a good idea?
Favorite tree stand. Careful not to let him know I'm up here with my crossbow named Bunjie. Its name is Bunjie. Today is gonna be the day. He's not gonna get away from Bunjie. Death by Bunjie.
In all seriousness, yeah, I did quit my job. I resigned from my county job that I had for 6.5 years. I've gone back into private practice. For those of you who might be new to Death by Bunjie, not that it matters, I am a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for nearly 25 years here in Pennsylvania. Did some stuff in New York as well. Always had a private practice. Had a job for 6.5 years. It ran its course. I'm very proud of what I accomplished in that job. Worked with a lot of great people, but I'm happy to be self-employed once again. I really am. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to have a little bit more hunting time, right? I'm not going to hunt every day. I mean, I got to pay the bills. I got work to do. But I did go out and pick up another Oracle X. I really like these scopes, and we're going to find out if it is a solution for this older, slower crossbow. Now, most of you guys watching this are shooting modern crossbows around 400 feet per second, 500 feet per second. A lot faster, right, than this old slow thing. Bunjie here, the OB, and I have been together for 13 seasons, though. And man, it's hard to give that up when you have that kind of familiarity, that one-gun familiarity with that crossbow. I really love this thing, and it just fits me so perfect and everything else. I've nonetheless been out with Bunjie 3.0, the slick black Cadillac. You've seen it right here on Death by Bunjie. I love that crossbow too. I love just about everything about it. It's different from this one, right? It requires me to do things differently. But I've got that Burris Oracle X on there, and man, I see the value in that scope. A little button. I did other videos on this stuff. I'll put links in the description. You should check out these other videos. Using that scope gives you precise, accurate yardage. It doesn't mean that you have to guess whether it's a 20 or 30 or somewhere in between kind of shot, 40, 50, 60. You can have 42, 44, 47, whatever, and have an exact reticle, a little red dot telling you exactly where to aim. And it does it instantaneously. You push the button, boom, it's ready to go. One thing I like about familiarity, and one thing that I struggle with, is when I go from one scope to another, right? Maybe it's true that the scope that you use is not as important. Doesn't matter so much which scope as it does that you're using the same scope. Because, man, every time I switch from one scope to the other, I have to remember what I'm doing. And I don't want to remember what I'm doing. I want it to just be instinct. I want to be able to snap on a deer, boom, push a button, whatever I'm going to do. In the moment of truth, I want to be able to do that instantaneously, instinctually, not have to think about it and figure out what I'm doing. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. So I think it is time for the Excalibur Twilight DLX scope to go. I love the Excalibur Twilight DLX. I really love this scope. These are great scopes. They have a speed ring adjustment, your traditional speed ring style adjustment, right? Which will run anywhere from 280. I've gotten pretty accurate out to 60 yards at around 280 feet per second, up to about 410, I think it goes to 415. So it's got a real broad range. Works great. I had this scope on Bunjie 3.0 on the Scorpion Deathstalker 420, and it worked fine, right? I was shooting 150 grain broadhead, maxing out around 400 feet per second. Not a problem. Works great with this scope. Works better on that crossbow. At a faster speed, you actually have you're more zoomed in, right? So it works better at those longer distances. With this scope on this crossbow, I have the speed ring turned all the way down. But you can see I actually put a mark on there with a marker. It's just so I can visually look at it and make sure that it's lined up for the current arrow setup. And the reason I had to do that is, number one, because this is an older, slower crossbow. On a good day, 305 feet per second. With the heavier arrows that I'm using to get adequate penetration out of an older, slower crossbow like this, 563 grain total arrow weight, it's shooting around 260 feet per second. I've got the speed ring turned all the way down, and it still does not accurately line up at 40, 50, 60 yards. Not that I'm going to shoot a deer at that distance, right? But I'd like to be able to shoot in the backyard at that distance, and I'm hoping that with the Burris Oracle X, I can do that. I've done other videos on this scope, the Burris Oracle X. Go check those out. I've done a video on how to true it. We're going to put the scope on. We're going to true it, sight it in, and go out and hunt and shoot a big buck. Or a buck, or a deer, or something. We're going to shoot something. Maybe a squirrel. I don't know. But we're going to shoot something, hopefully, today with this new scope on this older, slower, but perfect crossbow. I'm just going to pop this off here. I did another video on the installation of this thing. So if you want to really see the installation, that whole process, you can check out those other videos. Hopefully this goes better than that did. Where I can see, get the bump. I'm going to leave the scope rings right on here, and so I can put it right back on next time if I need to. One thing I like about this older scope is the fact that the eye relief was so perfect on it. Talk about snapping it in place and taking a shot. That's what this scope does. It's really sad to take it off of there, actually. Put this guy on here. We're just going to grab ourselves a little sheetrock knife. My dad's old sheetrock knife. He's gone now, but I still have a lot of his tools left around. Think of them every time that I pick one of them up. There's the manual that comes with it. And we've got, this is for our remote. It comes with a Torx wrench. We're going to get that out. I've got another one here somewhere, obviously, but we'll get this one out and use it because we will need it for the installation of this bad boy. So, how's that going to look? That look good on here? Well done. One of the downsides of the Burris Oracle X is that the design of this thing, you can see that Picatinny rail is going to be eaten up by this bad boy. Like, this thing goes on here. You can slide it back and forth. There's adjustment you can do, but it takes up the whole Picatinny rail. So what I can't do is put the Tacticam on here, right? Like our Tacticams, this isn't the right mount, but this Tacticam mount, I used to put right here, right? On the other scope. It goes slide right under the rope, under the scope, fits there perfect. Can't do it with this one because this thing's going to cover the whole rail. My hope had been on Bunjie the 3rd, shoot a deer with that scope on there, and then take it off once I killed a deer with it and put it on here and see if I liked it on here or not, instead of buying one. But I never killed a deer with it. We just didn't get it done. And that is shooting so good, that other crossbow is, because I learned how to do the timing myself. I'm so proud of myself. I did the timing on it. That thing shoots like it's brand new out of the box. It is perfect. And I don't really want to take the scope off and go tinkering with that crossbow, you know, when it's shooting good. Once something's working, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It even says that on this crossbow. On the back of this, Genevieve gave me a fortune cookie once. Showed me that, and she went and taped it on the back of Bunjie's gear. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. I'm going to play around with the eye relief here, get this thing a little bit snug so it don't fall off there. I don't want to drop it again. That's like the downside of this thing, is it's a little top heavy and it wants to roll around. And I'm going to need a cheek piece. Went through all that before on the other crossbow, and I think it will be just fine. That doesn't look too bad. I think that looks pretty good. Makes it look like a modern crossbow. Like you never know it was 13 seasons old. And man, I only need about 4 inches on there to help me, you know, get my cheek up there. But we got a little fix for that. You got to adjust the eyepiece on this thing separately. There's like explanations how to do that in the manual. We're going to do that before we go forward and lock this thing down. Well, I've got the battery installed. Click it, and yeah, it lights up. Remember this thing back in the day? I did a video a few crossbow appreciation months ago about how this didn't fit. This is from Excalibur, but it didn't really fit this stock. On these older crossbows like this, this is the cheek piece that goes on these older crossbows. And I never really needed it with the old scope, my eye relief and the elevation, the cheek rest and all that. Cheek weld was perfect on it. Everything about that scope was set up. I'm hoping I can mimic that on this, but we're going to have to finagle it a little bit. There's a hole here, and what I did, the hole didn't line up with the cheek piece. So the little screw didn't go in there, right? So what I did is I filled in the hole with JB Weld and drilled a new hole, because I was not going to modify this. I'm not going to put holes in my precious Bunjie. I'm not going to do that, right? the cheek piece has to accommodate Bunjie. Bunjie is not going to accommodate the cheek piece. That's not how that works. So now we'll put the cheek piece on. That's going to get us a little bit of an increase. It's like 3/8 of an inch maybe that we'll get, if I can get that hole lined up now. So far so good. It's on there. Look at that. Get that down there so it's flush. Oh, it's way better. It's way better. It gets my cheeking right, but I'm not rested on it, if you know what I mean. I do need to increase it a little bit. Now, for Bunjie the Third, right, the Scorpion Deathstalker 420, remember, I went and got the cheek piece from Got a Grip, right? And I got his card around here somewhere, right here, handy. Not sponsored by anybody on Death by Bunjie. I pay for stuff like everybody else. I had to buy this stuff. But Michael Goddard at Got a Grip, check out their website, right? I did a video on that. It completely, I love it. I love everything about it. And I've been using that in the field. Still haven't shot a deer with that cheek piece on there, but it really has helped me work with that Oracle X scope, that raised up scope. So if you're looking to give yourself a little bit higher cheek weld, so you can rest your cheek a little bit higher, snap in there good, get your crossbow perfect so it suits you perfectly, check out Got a Grip. They're a foamy type thing, poly something or other. Sorbothane. There you go, Sorbothane. It's the same thing they put in your soda probably. I don't know. But it is a very comfortable product, and I happen to have a little bit left over. I'm going to see if that works. Now, if it's not enough, I will contact him again. He was great. I spent some time with him on the phone, and great guy to talk to. I mean, this guy, we emailed back and forth, then we talked on the phone, and he walked me through what I needed. But I'm going to see if I can build myself a little bit of a cheek weld, a cheek rest, build up the existing cheek rest that I just put on, build that up with a little bit of this stuff, and we'll see how we make out. Well, like they say, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and I think I got lucky here. Holy cow, I just cut off the first piece. I actually had to, for the Scorpion, I had to really raise it up high, and I have an additional piece left over from that that was a lot thicker. If you look how thick that would be, if I put that on the top, I was going to modify this, cut it, and that would give me another 1/2 inch or so. This, I think it's because I've got the Excalibur version, plus this. This is a pretty good setup. You're supposed to let it stand for 24 hours, but it's going to get hunted on today. But man, I lift up and it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. I love it to death. So we're going to hunt that today. So here's a little remote that comes with it, the Burris remote. I love this thing. It's so handy. It's Bluetooth, so you turn this on, and then this stays on for 30 minutes, something like that. And then, you know, if you want to range find something, you hit the little button, and then boom, it's range finding it right now. You can put this on here. It comes with a little piece of Velcro, right? But the problem with the Velcro, and I can see what the problem is. Number one, I'm not sure, like you gotta, my plan was carry this in my backpack, take it out, stick it in place, and then go hunt with it. The problem is that this, you know, on the back of this is the red tape I put on. I'll talk about that in a second here. But if you put the Velcro here, this thing's going to rock under there. It's going to be smushy, all that kind of stuff. On the advice of a friend of Bunjie Jim, I went and bought some 3M. This is automotive stuff, some kind of automotive acrylic tape or something like that, double-sided 3M tape. Put 2 pieces on there. I'm going to peel these off, stick it fast, clean that off first a little bit, make sure it's nice and clean. But then I'm going to stick this on there. If I go to take it off, I know I'm going to have to use residue remover or something like that. There's going to be a problem with it. But I'm not going to use the Velcro. You don't want to lose this bad boy. So if it gets stuck on there and it's hard to get off, that's only a good thing. And it comes with some zip ties, which worked great on the stock of Bunjie the Third, right? The Scorpion Deathstalker. It's got that contoured grip. Oh, for your dainty little hands or whatever. Bunjie doesn't have that problem. Bungie's got a big old 2x4 for a stock. Look at that big old thing, right? You don't need finger guards. You can't. Who's got fingers long enough? The string is not going to hit your fingers on this crossbow. I suppose it could happen, but this crossbow though will like this. I think mounted right up there up front, right where my left thumb will be. All right, success. Remote went on there good. It's linked up. It does its thing. It, you know, whatever. Everybody's happy with that. I've got it on there with the 3M tape. It is in place. It's lined up perfect where I want it. My cheek rest is staying on there good. I think we're ready to put this to use in the 60-yard backyard. All right, well, the first shot didn't go so hot. I can tell you that much. I wasn't recording, thankfully, but this thing, you know, I just put it on here. It's never been shot out here before, and I don't think the folks that made this scope are really thinking about a crossbow that shoots this slow. But that thing is in the grass. I hope I can find it. Luminoc lit up. I saw it down there, but it missed the target completely, missed the bulldog completely, and it's in the grass. It was down the bottom left. So I have cranked this thing up 4 revolutions. I have turned it to the right on here 4 revolutions, and hopefully this dude right here is going to see a little bit different result. We're going to find out. So I'll turn you dudes around so you get to see, you dudes, all you friends of Bunjie anyway. We're going to turn you this way so you can kind of see what we're dealing with. See if I can zoom in a little bit. How's that? Brand new scope, never sighted in, not even designed for this older, slower crossbow. I'm aiming at the center dot just because I want to see if I can get somewhere in the middle. Ooh, way better. You can see where it hit. We are low. We're going to move that to the right about an inch and a half, and we are going to move it up to the right inch and a half, up about 6 inches, and see where we're at. I'm pretty happy with that. That sounded just like the good old Bunjie, didn't it? Let's bring this back around. I can talk to you about what another observation. Get you where you can see that and see me at the same time, hopefully. But another reason I'm doing this with this scope on this crossbow is when you start playing with things, right? You change one thing, it has a ripple effect, and it changes other things. I talk about that in my new book, The Death by Bunjie Crossbow Method. Go check that out if you hadn't already. But put a new scope on, gotta have a cheek rest, and we gotta have another cheek rest. I really could not sight in to my level of accuracy, my preferred level of accuracy, before with the other scope on here. That's because of the arrow speed.
I slowed it down so much.
Down to around 260. Obviously, that's going to affect that old scope. It's going to affect the new scope, right? We just missed the target completely. I'm going to put another little lube on here real quick, shoot another arrow, and make the adjustments and see where we're at. Upper left corner. Not too bad. Upper left corner out there. After the 1 arrow in the grass, 3 more in the target, and then the 5th arrow. The 5th arrow, perfect. I'm going to go double check that. If it needs to be tweaked a little bit, I will do that. You got some really fine adjustment, 1/4 inch at 20 yards for each click. I think it's going to work. I'm really optimistic so far. We might be hunting deer this afternoon after all. In case you don't like Luminox, I'm telling you, even in the daylight, that's what gave away where that arrow is. Look how that is buried. Speaking of Luminox, this is a good time when you are shooting these things to bring them in here and test. Not test, but just look at them and see who ain't working. Like this dude ain't working. Why aren't you working? Why you no work? So that's a number one. Number one, my butt. But arrow number 1 is a dud. So, that could be the battery. It could be a lot of things. We'll figure it out. But before, I'm going to turn these ones off. And this guy, before it goes upstairs, it gets a well-lit Luminox, or it doesn't go back upstairs. Got it? So we were like 3 or 4 inches low. Look at that. 30 yards. Well, I think that scope looks good on that crossbow. I think Bunjie approves. I now have it dialed in at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. But then that little ball is at 24, and I was able to hit that right where I was aiming using, we'll swing around here, the Bluetooth remote, which attached nicely and has so far stayed in place. The cheek piece seems to be staying in place too. Working good. Might have to adjust that down the road. We'll see. Until you're in a hunting situation, right? Until you use it a few times, you just don't know. So, what that means is, it's time to go out and use it in a hunting situation. Now, isn't it? That is the only way to know if this is going to work or not. Bunjie and I are going to go sit in the blind. How's this for a familiar sight, huh? Bunjie and I, with its clown-colored string, on our way back to a familiar location where we've killed deer together before. We've had a good time together before. The well-pad food plot. I gotta be quiet because right out here, I've let all this grow up with that autumn olive. You've seen videos about that. And because of that, we've got deer that hang out in here. It's not their primary bedding area. The deer that I'm hunting tonight are actually on the other side of that well pad. Do you see how deftly I can maneuver through the woods carrying this giant crossbow? It's like, I don't need a sling or nothing. With Bunjie the Third, I would have picked up almost all this goldenrod by now. Gotten all caught in the under the arrow retention finger by this point. I have troubles with that. But work in progress, work in progress. 13 years of this crossbow. No work in progress, man. We got all the kinks worked out on this bad boy. Check out the food plot here. Huh. That food plot came in pretty good overall. They have been mowing that down. There's a really nice fat doe and her boyfriend, a really nice fat spike, that hang out down here. And I've had run-ins with these deer. I've seen them. We are on October 27th today. But earlier this month I was down there. And I hung in a saddle and spooked deer. Had them spot me. Deer picked me off when I was climbing the tree because it took me an hour and a half to get all set up with that saddle. And had that spike come in. Saw him off in there. Not a legal deer. But I saw that he's working my mock scrape down there, so maybe he's going to attract somebody else. Maybe he puts on a good show and attracts a nice big buck down there later on in the season. Who knows? But he's in and out of there. I had that doe at 44 yards. They were picking me off. I was tempted to take a shot at 44 yards. I'm like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? I went and put the blind back up. Did a little weed whacking. I'm going to go sit in that blind, see what happens. Well, I made it. I'm set up. Hear the compressor station. But the clover, plenty of clover out there, looks really, really good. I'm pretty excited. Bunjie is pretty excited. Let's see what we can get done. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Wow. That's better than Sinead O'Connor though, right? Bunjie and I got blanked, coming back with 0 deer. Didn't even see any deer down here. I suppose walking in and talking to you, if I avoided that, that probably would help. We do know that the Burris Oracle X works on an older, slower crossbow. We don't know how it's going to perform in the woods shooting a deer. Here we are going into the rut with 2 crossbows, Bunjie and Bunjie 3.0, both of which have Burris Oracle X scopes installed. So I will know, hopefully, by the end of this crossbow season, whether that scope is for me. I really do like it. We'll see. Until next time, all hail Bunjie.